Morning everyone. It's gone 10:30, so let's start the meeting. This is a meeting of the Enterprise and Services Subcommittee. A couple of items on the agenda. First though, can we have Sederunt and apologies?
Thank you, Chair. Got 8 members present this morning. Apologies from Councillor Dryborough. Understand Councillor Fairbairn may be along later, and Councillor Johnston currently not present.
Thanks, Claire. Declarations of interest, anyone? No. Item 3 is the Enterprising Services Monitoring Report 2018-19 for the period ended the 31st of August 2018. This report provides members with an overview of key budget analysis of the budget monitoring position for Enterprise and Services for the current financial year based on the position as at 31st of August 2018, end of period 5. The services covered in the report are both those provided with the budget and those that are operated on a trading basis or are fully allocated at the year end. I think due to the time frame, I think just commend the officers for pulling this report. I think it is a comprehensive and detailed report of where we are currently at the end of period 5, and the finance officer is present along with other officers to answer any questions you may have. Rose?
Thanks very much, Chair. Morning, everybody. I'm just looking at page 2, and I'm looking at the first paragraph where it says regarding 9 people leaving in October. And I'm just wondering what the impact of losing these staff is, and can we keep up with what we need to be doing. I'm also looking at vehicle maintenance, paragraph 3.5. 35% of vehicles aren't covered within the maintenance contract, and I just don't understand that. I want to know what that means. And also, it seems that if you look at further on down that paragraph, the fleet are costing quite a lot because of the age of the vehicles. And are we going to be replacing those vehicles? Thanks.
Okay, I think first question, I don't know whether that's Caroline or Ronnie to answer, and then after that I'll hand you over to Gordon to answer the 2 questions, if that's okay.
Chair, I think Alan's going to give you the response to the ERA.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, the 9 staff are part of the budget savings template 11 that was agreed last year as part of the budget setting process, with the majority of them being, well, all of them posts being through ERVS, that's been through the panel, with the kind of breakdown as it's suggesting there's majority is cleaning, with 1 in water cooler part tester. So just the impact as far as the cleaning is concerned, so the models that we've been working on through the last 18 months and tests of change have been moving Dalbeattie as an example campus to 5 to 4 cleaning. The new Northwest campus was the same, test of change and cleaning in there. And also office buildings have been looking at being reviewed. Irish Street was an example of moving and remodelling of there and allowing ERVSs to go. It's worth noting, Chair, I think that this is an ongoing process over this year as well and over next year as part of Template 11. So there'll be reasonably significant numbers that'll be increased as part of this remodelling.
Okay, Ros, I'll hand you over to Gordon to kind of for the other 2 points.
Through you, Chair. Morning. On the first point, part of the fleet not being covered by vehicle maintenance, it's a different way until the charging the maintenance on those vehicles. They're still being maintained through the workshops, but because some of the assets are quite complicated and additional equipment's involved in them, it's just better and easier if we manage them on a pay-as-you-go type internal contract rather than a contract maintenance. But still maintained through the workshops and they're still costed. Your second point on some of the fleet getting quite aged, just briefly, as quick as I can on that, and without going into too much detail, the fleet's nearly split 50-50 by leased and owned vehicles. Leased vehicles go on a running programme of renewal, whether it's 5, 7, sometimes 9 years. The owned fleet is renewed through the capital asset programme, which is limited in capital, and that's just a case of prioritising on age and operation and a bit of a split. And then definitely as any vehicle goes, as it gets older, it does cost more to maintain. It's just a constant circle of renewal on that, if that makes sense.
I'll bring you in. Do you think Caroline wants to add something? But just before you come in out, Caroline, as well, and so based on what Gordon has said, is there a provision in the budget to actually recognise the age of that, and there's the likelihood there is to be more repairs on an ongoing basis?
Through you, Chair. Obviously, that is one of the issues, that with the decreasing budgets, there isn't any kind of scope for kind of adding to budgets within the fleet. Obviously, the vehicle maintenance manager is rationalising the fleet as much as possible, so that hopefully there's some savings coming out of any duplications, the removal of duplications and other things. And some of that saving needs to be used to kind of recognise other budget pressures. So in that respect, that's how the budget pressures are going to have to be dealt with in the ongoing year. There's no pot of money to help with that. Can I just say one point of clarification? The 35% isn't the number of contract charge vehicles. It's not 35. It's not 65% of vehicles are under the contract charges and 35. It's the amount of money that income. The 35% relates to the amount of the percentage of income that we get. So contract income is 65 and the rest is 35.
And then Katie.
Thanks for letting me back in, Chair. So I'm just looking at the fact that we've had an overspend, and I do recognise that some of that is because of the change of contract that has happened recently. Are we actually saving money? Has there been an analysis of the history of... I was here when they introduced pool cars, and I can remember it very well as a social worker, where we were not claiming mileage anymore. But is it a successful business enterprise in that sense? Or are we saving anything?
Gordon first.
Chair, but when it comes to the pool car fleet, there's one figure that I always think is a good figure to keep an eye on, and that's, I suppose you can call a cost avoidance figure. So if you take the mileage that's covered by the pool cars, convert it to what would be grey mileage if we didn't have the pool cars, then take the cost of the pool car fleet and administer from that, we're left with a figure of about 160k on average a year. And that's purely cost avoidance from having that fleet. So there is a benefit in having it, but it is a fleet of about 200 cars. There is a lot of management involved in it, and it's peaks and troughs based on users, operations, how that changes within the council, distance travelled and so on. So there is a benefit, yes.
It would be really helpful to have that information of analysis, because I often worry about that, and I'm sure other people do too. So,
through you, Chair, that information's on a heavily complicated spreadsheet. I can't share it with you, but to be honest, the best probable ways is if you come in and we can show you. We've got KPI boards on the walls in the offices. You could physically see how it's managed, how it's run, and we could probably simplify it down. But putting it in a report, a simplified report, would be quite difficult because of the information that goes into it. But
Do you fancy a day out at Carrigan Towers, Ros?
I'd definitely do that. I would be personally interested, but it's also what we're putting over to staff and the public to see that we are, yes, there's an overspend and we can justify the use of pool cars. People constantly approach me and say, what the use of the pool cars? I see them in the car park all day. And it's good for me to have that information as a councillor so I can reassure members of the public that we are spending money wisely.
Was there not a spend to save with regards to the pool cars? Was that originally was there not a spend to save project? Yeah.
Yeah, that's 160k that I'm talking about. That's effectively what the spend to save calculations come down to. By having that fleet, that's what the cost avoidance is.
I suppose maybe getting Rose a copy of that original report. I don't know if that report was...
probably going back to maybe 2011. Aye, I'll have something original.
Okay, Roz? Katie?
Thank you, Chair. I've got 2 points I want to make just now. The first one is actually building on what Roz has just said about looking for more detail. You know, you've summarised briefly just there that there's 160k being saved. You know, we're looking at our monitoring report. Why is that? I mean, you were able to summarise in a couple of sentences. We don't necessarily need all the minute details, but we need that summary, and that's not in this report. And I appreciate this the first time that the committee has asked for this report, and it's welcome that we've got some of this information coming back. However, it's not clearly laid out at all. It's really not. I mean, looking at the vehicle maintenance, we've got, you know, the accounts for 57%, and then we've got in brackets a 35% and a 1%. I don't understand why it couldn't be much clearly laid out, where you've maybe got the heading, vehicle maintenance, a table with the data clearly laid out, and then any narrative that goes along with that. It would make, I presume, your life easier, because you would see it written down. You've obviously got that data there, and it makes us able to actually scrutinise this much easier, because at the moment there's just screeds of paper, and we want our council to be open for members of the public to look at it and go, well, what are the council doing? And as a member of the public, if they were to just read that, well, there's just a big long narrative, whereas if it was laid out in a much simpler, easier to understand model. So I guess my request is that, can we have on our next report, and I appreciate, as I say, this is the only first time we've had this back, but can I possibly put in on the recommendation that on our following report that the layout is looked at to be much clearer understood? So that was my first point. My second point...
Can you take that one first then, Katie?
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah. Maybe just hand you over to Caroline, but obviously this is the first monitoring report for members, so really, you know, welcome the feedback so that we can actually, you know, perfect the report and actually improve the report so that it's easy for members to kind of follow. So Caroline, can you take that? Do you want to comment maybe on...
Absolutely. Obviously, this is a work in progress. Remember, I'm numbers, not words, so I appreciate any help with the wording from you. Thanks very much.
It's great, and obviously she's just said as well, it's numbers, not words. So she'll look forward to putting the little tables in beside the sections. And your next point?
Yep, I was looking at our capital projects. Now, it's mentioned in 3.4. We've got the Appendix 2, and it's included in the current template, and it says that the income forecast is on track. But there's no mention within that narrative on the fact that on Appendix 2, there is a slippage for 2 of the projects of 782,000 and 415,000 of the slippage. So we're over £1 million worth of slippage going on here, and there's no detailed report on what that's caused by, and in order to monitor that, it would be really useful. So can I ask, where are we with these 2 capital projects, and is there any I guess any role for us to scrutinise this, to make sure, how do we pull that back on track? What are we doing? Or will there be a further report to another committee that covers these two capital projects?
I think maybe to the head of service, but Kate, obviously recognise, you know, we're talking the potential income was 7, 8, 9 million. So really, what you want to see is a breakdown of those kind of projects. Now, I don't know if we can do that within a report, or whether or not it's sent out to members so they can see on a spreadsheet.
Thank you, Chair. I'll give a bit of back context, and then I'll allow my colleague from Building Services to come in. This is on the basis of, I suppose, really following on from last year when we had some of the challenges around our financial close down with relation to some of the capital projects that hadn't came to fruition. We are now working with more closely with our colleagues in Property and Architectural Services. They define a list of projects and programmes of work activity that we will work through. Some of the slippages may well come through as part of design and modifications are going through. What we can do for future reports, and certainly take that on board, we can provide the detail of the projects that have been given to us and build that into it. It's quite a substantial volume of buildings, and it would just be a list of buildings that we'd be doing that. But happy again, as our finance officer says, this is part of a process of developing the amount of information that we get back to you, and we're happy to do that. But that's what those programs are. Where there is slippage, then our colleagues in PES are then bringing forward other projects, other pieces of activity to backfill that activity that, because of design or planning or other internal issues, have caused that project or projects to slip.
Katie,
Thank you.
Katie, do you want back in? Yep.
Yes, please. I mean, as I say, I appreciate there may be all sorts of reasons for slippage, and looking at the capital programme slippage amount, I'm aware certainly at Wigton Area Committee we're asking for information about the Stranraer waterfront. That's a capital programme. I'm aware that in committee we're having reports of DG1 and we've had reports of the Dalbeattie campus. Those are all our capital projects. But is there any point that we're looking at all our capital projects and where we are? I mean, at what point can members look at the capital projects as an overview to see, are we on track? Is it the role of this committee, or what committee is that looking at? Those figures to ensure that we are actually on track?
Yeah. Yes, sorry. Yeah, P&R would be the committee for it. Oh, Stephen, do you want to come in yet?
Through you, Chair. In terms of the capital programme which Enterprise and Services carried out on behalf of PES, that is reported through PAR and it is monitored there, I think, on a monthly basis.
David?
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 points. They're probably not connected, but I'll start with my question on 3.12, the 2 caravan sites, Lockerbie and Castle Douglas. It also mentions a site at Dalbeattie. Is that the Isle Croft site? And I thought I knew someone who'd leased and operated that this year. Clarification on that, please.
On that one, I was going to raise something on the Annan one as well. I believe that's leased out as well, and it's kind of linked in through the common good. But Alan, do you want to kind of come in?
Oh, yeah, Chair, through yourself, all I can say, through finance, we don't receive any income through them sites, and they certainly never they too did not transfer as part of the operational running for Enterprise and Services. It was only the one up at, went blank, sorry. Castle Douglas and the other site that we operate at the moment, Lochmaven site, thanks God.
I can remember a report that came to I think it was Community Resources at the time, and there was a number of the sites that were owned by the council were then given out to the communities, and I think Annan, and I'm sure there was with Kakubri, yeah, but there was Dalbeattie as well. So I certainly know that Annan is still functioning, but it's leased out and there is some relationship with the common good. Caroline, if I can clarify with that one, we incur some costs for Annan in terms of repairs and water charges, but we don't receive any income. It may be because it's a common good that it's actually the common good that receives the income, but it hasn't. In effect, we've acquired the costs, but not the income. For Dalbeattie, there was income in the year 17-18 of £1,000. It was rented out on a peppercorn rent. However, that stopped at the beginning of this year and hasn't been returned. So at the moment, there is no income being received for the Dalbeattie site.
I mean, it does say here that it's not being operated at the moment. I haven't checked this week, but up until very recently, this summer, it was operated.
Okay. Maybe the operated is the wrong word. Income received, it might have been the better terminology. We haven't been receiving any income. I will go and check with our property services colleagues, who are the people that actually administer the rental agreement with the caravan site.
because we should. Sorry, David, but yeah, because I kind of flagged this up as well, because it does suggest that both those are not open, and I certainly know that Annan is, but it's on a private lease. So I think the fact is that the council is still incurring charges like water charges, etc. I think it's something maybe we need to look at and maybe bring back a future report on that situation. Yeah. David?
Thank you for that, because if it's an asset that we have, and it is an asset in the other sense of the word to the local economy, and we should have, even if we can't extract any income at the moment, there should be some sort of strategy. I don't know if this is a relevant committee for this, but certainly that one I think is being operated. If I move to 3.11, and I'm taking this as an example of where I suppose quite often the council is in fact the customer for enterprising DG. So the print unit, when the council gets something printed or thinks that it wants something printed, does it look at the market, or does it always go direct to the print unit? How are those decisions made? I suppose we're on the other side of the coin here as the provider, but are you in a competitive market when you are the print unit?
That's you, and can you maybe as well, because we have kind of turned this round, the print units, maybe give a little bit background as to in the last couple of years as well.
Yeah, Chair. So I think just to answer that question first and a bit of background, maybe is the best way to do it is certainly the way the print unit works is the equipment that's in the print unit does what we would say is basic print. So what you see, colour print, flyers, etc. There is some specialised print that the printers don't actually do, and they go out to Solway print, example, other printing. But if the in-house equipment can print, then all print comes in-house. So that they've certainly got the capacity to do that. There is some type of, I think they call it litho printing, I think is the terminology that they do, that needs to go out, and it's normally through the graphics department that would do. So if there's any graphics work gets done on a piece of kit, it goes through the graphics department. They know what is capable within the current print unit to print, and they would send that across automatically. Anything that's out with it's not the skill set, it's the equipment that the issue is with, then it would go out externally, which is very, very small margin of work. I'll take that one first, and then where we've done.
Confirm this is not a competitive situation where we look at what it would cost out with. We just default automatically to give it to the print unit, and they tell us with the other hat on, the council, that's what it's going to cost. All right.
Yeah, so the print unit's got a budget. It's associated with what the running cost that it's got. The budget was under pressure when it came across to enterprise and services. The reasons for that was it operated from Stranraer. I had probably in excess of staff within that. We've removed that. The budget now equates to running as a balanced budget and offering a small surplus back. And the budget then covers the costs of printing that come into to there as far as the council is concerned. It's not an enterprise and service as far as the council costs are concerned.
David, you want to come back in?
And well, if I may, that print unit was perhaps my example, but are there other services that we'd like to list that are just automatically defaulted to the internal provision rather than comparing with the external market price and availability?
Alan?
Yeah, I mean, business support services would be one as well. Our central support costs are all defaulted as far as that's concerned. School meals is another good example. Cleaning is another example. So your funded trading services, in principle, are where they would default back as far as best value is concerned.
Value?
Best value, yeah.
Yeah. Are we comparing it with the market to get to understand what best value is, or are we just assuming it's best value to do it internally?
Well, the establishment of the print unit has been historical, so the best value is associated with what it does as far as the papers that you've got in front of you for the councillor. Has there been benchmarking? I think the question you're asking, has there been a benchmarking against the print unit or all the other services? So we're talking about outsourcing. I think that's a separate conversation, Chair.
And I think the council gives direction on that, and it's best value as far as the current administration is, and that decision has been taken, like any other decision is taken on whether the service is outsourced or not. I've got John Martin, and then I've got Graham, and then I've got Jim.
Thanks, Chair. It's just on 3.5 vehicle maintenance. The indirect costs for the service are anticipated to be 22,000 higher than budget due to payment for overtime more than expected. Just wondering what's caused that spike. Is it a long-term sickness, or what caused that?
Through you, Chair. It's a mixture of things, Councillor. We've had a spike in, you can see there's been a spike in direct costs, which also gives us a spike in income. So there's been a heavier workload. For the first time in a lot of years, this will have been our worst year for sickness. And we've had some staff with some quite serious illnesses, which has caused quite lengthy times of sickness into months in some cases. So it's a bit of a mixture of workload, ageing fleet, and a bit of sickness.
John, as I said, do we expect this to continue, or will it be going down? The kind of age profile, is that part of the cause of the long term?
As far as sickness goes, well, everybody's back. We're still a couple of guys short through recruitment, but we're actively filling them positions at the moment. The aged fleet's been addressed through whether it's leases or whether it's capital. One of the biggest problems we're suffering at the moment is through the RCV fleet, but we're sort of started into a refurbishment programme with a lot of the bodies on the RCV fleet to combat that.
Just on that point as well, I take it as well that some of these vehicles that they probably require repaired as soon as possible. Are they critical to a service elsewhere?
The workshop as a function is maintaining the frontline fleet, whether that be road sweepers, street sweeping equipment, dust carts, coming into gritters, buses. So yeah, they're all a priority, and we don't have the luxury of spare vehicles. So these vehicles need fixed as and when they break down to maintain the frontline services.
Graham, then Jim.
Thanks, Chair. I hadn't it marked down. Well, kind of thought about it, but came up in conversations. Pool cars. It would be handy to know the average mileage of these pool cars, or the total mileage, and how many we've got exactly. We started off with 60 or 80. If I go back to when we started with pool cars, they've just kind of bred like rabbits somewhere, and we seem to have a lot of them now. But anyway, that would be useful information. And do we lease them or do we buy them? That's the other question I was going to ask.
That's a strange comparison, Graham. But I take it, Gordon, you'll have a super Excel spreadsheet somewhere, do you, that you can send round to members to show us the latest position on the lease cars, the pool cars?
Aye, through you, Chair, we lease all the pool cars. They have bred through the book, and that's all come to committee and been approved according to the numbers. But roughly, we've got about 175 pool cars and about 25 to 30 dedicated cars which operate through social work. We do lease them, and as I said before, they are cost effective in the running of them.
Do you still want to see them, or do members still want to see that information and where they're located within Dumfries and Galloway? Because I think that all that information is there. So, yeah. One is saying that you could do a pictograph with the mileage and everything, and all the information that you want, and then you can send that out.
Yeah, that would be
Members happy with that?
Yeah.
Did you have another point, Graham?
I've got one or two, yes.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm disappointed to see that the secondary school lunch uptake has dropped from 46% to 43%. I'm just wondering if that's a trend or if it's if we're reversing that trend, and what are we doing about reversing that trend? Because I'm quite sure the school meal is a bit cheaper than going down the street and buying rubbish.
Alan will probably have the answer to this, but obviously as well, I think this will be concern for SIPL as well. They'll probably have that as a regular item on their agenda. But have you got an answer to that?
Yeah, Chair, through yourself. I think, a valid point noted by the councillor. I think it's a concern for us as well. I think we've had a positive trend over the last 5 or 6 years across school meals. It's been growing. It's been sitting 5th in Scotland. We brought it from 28th in Scotland, so it's a fantastic good news story. And now we've taken for the first time a small dip that we see as far as uptake is concerned. We've done an exercise in detail on this, and we're reporting to SIPL either in November or January. Looking forward to that, but certainly happy to disclose some of that information at the moment, Chair. And that is that we can isolate them costs associated with paid meals only. So we know that our free school meals are actually just marginally still growing, so that's a good news story. But we certainly have got concerns around our paid meals. And after looking at what we've been doing as far as our concepts are concerned, nothing has changed. We've been very proactive in keeping that concept moving forward. However, what we can put the trend, when we look at it, the trend seems to be associated with the 2 price increases that we've incurred over the last 2 years. So we've had 2 5p price increases, and we can start to see that having an impact, albeit anecdotally, and there's no evidence to it other than that's the only trend that has changed. We've got a further 5p increase coming in April again, and that's concerning us. And I think, Chair, I think not for this committee, but certainly we'll be taking to SIPL is what is the priority as far as school meals are concerned? Is it about generating revenue as far as paid meals concerned, or is it about uptake? And I think that's a discussion that we'll be taking to SIPL. But certainly, what are we doing? We're doing a lot. What we've done is we look at Dalbeattie. We've introduced a new Globetrotter menu, and that Globetrotter menu is trying to take on a lot of trends. So what it does is it's about taste of the world off the high street. So whether it's Chinese food, Indian food, Italian food, British food cuisine, European cuisine, bringing that in and looking at it as far as street food's concerned, which means they can actually take it away from the unit if they want. And what we've done as parallel with that is we've been looking at the reduction of plastics and containers as part of that concern, making sure they're environmentally friendly. And we've launched that in 3 schools now, and that seems to be going down well. It was going down well in the Northwest campus. However, it's worth taking a note that what we've got is we've got an extended competition seems to be rallying around the region, and that is, sole traders, which is through vans and through other shop outlets opening up. So we're falling into a more competitive market than what we've got. And yes, I think what we've got is good value. We're looking at $1.95 for what we offer. However, we're still restricted in the legislation of the products that we sell. And what we're doing actually as part of that review going to SIPL is we've got to be looking at what them traders, we won't be identifying the traders, but be looking at the type of product that them traders are selling, the price margins that they're selling at, and early indications or suggestion that they can get a meal for £1.20. We'll evidence what that meal is because we don't believe it's even closely being nutritionally compliant. And we've got a nutritionist on board that will be looking at that, and we're presenting that to SIPL. Once presented to SIPL, Chair, then obviously we'll bring that a report from that SIPL committee back to this committee.
Thanks for that comprehensive answers. Graham, have you got other points?
One other point. 3.12, 2 caravan sites, one at Lochmaben and one at Castle Douglas. Now, not often through Lochmaben, but any time I'm through, it's usually got quite a lot of caravans in it. The Castle Douglas one is always busy, as far as I can see, and they're both superb sites, they're both nice sites. And I'm just concerned that they're only making us 43k a year, up from 38 certainly, and I don't think the private operators would be very happy with that. I'm just wondering if we do comparisons, or if we can do comparisons, but I know 1 or 2 caravan site owners that wouldn't be too happy with that.
Alan?
Yeah, Chair. Noted. I think we've had this question before at a previous committee, and I think from being a previous life self-employed, I think all overheads paid within that, all wages paid from them sites, and then offering a return. I think it's reasonable based on what we inherited 2 years ago. I think we're offering a bigger return back to the council than what was there. Should it be more? I think that's a debatable question. I think we can get where is the limit with that. I think from where we are with council run provision is that one thing that we go, and I've spent time on caravans, used to own caravan, it's that we offer a competitive price, certainly not the dearest within the region, and we've best valued that and benchmarked that. But what I can say is we don't then con the tenants into extra charges. So there's no additional charges. We've got any site I've been on before and I've worked on, there's additional charges to any extras that you may want in that. So I think we're looking at that from an enterprising side. Is that where we want to be? I think we've inherited the 2 sites. There's been a good bit of capital investment up at Lochmaben and refurbishment of the toilets, etc. And certainly our bookings seem to be up for the previous year that we've got. We've reviewed the prices this year and put a 5% price increase on them, and we'll be reviewing them as well as next year. We're also looking this year at extending the season from October, and we can do winter opening for our pitch members that we've got there, and we're also extending this year into winter storage as well. So I think we might find a better return moving forward at the end of this financial year, Chair.
Thanks for that answer, Chair. And Jim McComb tells me it was me that asked the question the last time, so at least I'm consistent.
I think note your concerns, but I think we are turning what was kind of like quite a difficult situation 2 years ago into a positive trend. And I think if you look at both the campsites, that it's an upward trend, but also as well, the fact is looking at actually increasing, into the winter with some things like that, it's just only going to improve that. But I think also the knock-on effect that has, the fact is that it's increasing numbers into the area also has a knock-on effect in the local economy, which is only good news. So, I think it's going in the right direction. Jim?
Thanks, Chair. A couple of questions. 3.4. What was the rationale involved in moving street lighting from roads to building services?
Must be a hard question. Ronnie's got this one.
An easy one, aye. Thank you, Chair, through you. The rationale, Dumfries and Galloway has been very successful with its LED lighting programme. That, over the period of time, has identified that in the longer term, the ability to support the street lighting service would be better placed where other electricians are, because there was an age profile issue, and there was also, as we've brought in this very successful LED programme, there's been a diminishing amount of additional maintenance activity associated with the lighting. So the benefit was to bring the two groups within street lighting and building services together to give us a complementary service that if there was no base maintenance to be carried out in the street lighting, we had maintenance within the building services side. So it was a natural synergy to bring the services together and to give us greater efficiencies based around, as I say, one of these successes that's out there over the LED lighting, because it has reduced the day-to-day maintenance. When you look at the thousands of call-outs we'd have throughout the year with the old orange lights we had, now LEDs are very, very few and far between. So it's that balance of making efficiencies to give us a greater strength in the delivery for future.
I think it was budget saving as well, in last year's budget. And you've got another question, Jim, or do you want to come back on that one?
No, I'm satisfied with that explanation. And the second question, Chair, 3.5, it's a follow-up to what John raised a few minutes ago. Given the amount of overtime which has had to be worked on vehicle maintenance, was there any move to reduce the amount of external work?
Through you, Chair. The internal fleet takes a priority. If there was any external work done within that period of overtime, it would have been done at a weekend, and the appropriate rate would have been charged to cover that element. So we would never be working on external vehicles at a loss. But within the working week, the priority is always the internal fleet.
I think it's fair, a couple of members have raised it, it's probably the future report on how we're going to kind of cope with an ageing fleet service going forward, because it's something obviously that's got to have a continual kind of pressure on budget. So it's maybe something that members need to kind of get their heads round about going forward. Yeah. Well, either here or to EEI, happy either way. Katie, did you win back in? Well, you got another one? Yeah.
No, it's just, that was the assurance I was looking for, that the internal vehicles receive priority. Thank you.
Katie.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me come back in. I just wanted to jump back to 3.9 and the provision of school meals. Now, on our table in 3.7, we have got that the school and welfare catering is sitting with an underspend of 3,000. However, when we go to look at the narrative, we can actually see that it was expected we get an increase of 67k, but actually based on the data, it's actually expected to only be 7k. We've also got that the income from the non-school service is expected to be 23k higher, which is great news. But then we've also got over the page that staff costs are currently projected to be 91k higher than budget. So, the fact that we're sitting with an underspend is good, but certainly when we look at the detail of that, there's major issues, I think, that we need to look and address within this. Now, the administration group yesterday were fortunate enough to get a presentation from Food for Life Scotland yesterday, and I don't know if the catering team have been in touch with Food for Life Scotland. The information is that they are actually working with over half of the local authorities within Scotland. They offer free services to look and monitor the free school meals to ensure that we're being best value, and actually we'll look at it from a business point of view. Now, my understanding is this is a free service that's funded through Scottish Government, and my question is, are we looking to engage with that service? Because other organisations, including APSI, Zero Waste Scotland, Scotland Excel, NHS Scotland, these are all major national organisations that are working with this organisation. And if we're not working with them, can I ask, will we be working with them in the future? And if not, can I ask why we wouldn't be taking up the option of free funded data analysis and services that they're offering to us as a local authority?
Alan?
There's a lot there, Chair. I'll try and come back to the Food for Life one. I think looking at the finances are projected, and I think relatively comfortable with them. I don't think, contrary to the question, I don't think there's any issues for where we are sitting as far as the return of a balanced budget, albeit at 3k surplus being reported at the moment. I think the 91k higher, I think is the key one in there, is the 91k higher for the staff cost, and I think that's relevant due to the fact that we've got 75,000 of that is based on a saving. It's through RVS, and some of them's been progressed already, with a second batch going up in October, November. So once they've been through and balanced that, then it'll be 75k off that 91 as far as that's concerned. The rest of the additional staff costs associated with that will probably, the majority, I'm pretty sure, are down to, the detail in front of me, are down to external catering that we then put additional staff costs in, so it would balance up and give us a return, so there's no actual cost. Sorry, Colin.
I think just on that, I guess my concern is that if we've got 91k higher, that's 91,000 that potentially could have been going into our school dinners, our projects to increase the uptake. That's 91k that's having to be allocated from one service to another. That was my point, rather than not providing a balanced budget.
Yeah, well, I think just clarity on that is that 91k is balanced around, that's a saving, so it's been agreed as part of the I think it's template 22, I think it is, as part of last year. There's a catering saving, and it's just shown as far as the monitor is concerned that it's 75 that's in there. It couldn't be returned in. I think touching on, and it's a valid point I'd like to spend a bit of time on if I could, on the Food for Life. So Food for Life is one that we actually looked at 6 years ago. I think it was as far part of one of the first in Scotland to look at Food for Life accreditation. And it's an interesting conversation, because when we looked at that accreditation, we would have got a bronze accreditation. We probably still would get a bronze accreditation based on the criteria. But based on that, we thought we're better than a bronze accreditation, Chair, and so we launched Naturally D&G. And Naturally D&G is the set of principles around what the Food for Life accreditation was, but it was focused more around local provenance and trying to secure local food for Dumfries and Galloway. It's worth noting that the Food for Life is part of the Soil Association, and the accreditation is driven very much round about organic foods to be awarded the gold criteria. We are in discussion with Food for Life because they've approached the Chief Executive, it stands at the moment, and we will be in discussions with the Food for Life round about if there is a way of continuing through our Naturally D&G brand in line with the Food for Life. I think it's worth noting. I think we've got, as I say, we're sitting, if you take some of the more rural areas out, we're probably sitting in the top 3 in Scotland as far as school meals uptake is concerned. We do detailed analysis on how our school meals has been provided. My view is that we're going with an open mind. It's because the Food for Life accreditation has been supported by the Scottish Government. I'm not convinced that it would be the best under the Naturally D&G brand for us to go, but we're going in with that. It's worth taking a note that yes, they're selling it. They're in conversation with half the local authorities, but over the last 5 years, I think they've lost 25% of their role around local authorities dropping out. And I think what they've done is they've now got engagement with the Scottish Government to bolster that and look at what the benefits of them are. The authorities that are looking at going on board with them are the authorities that are sitting at the bottom of the table. But we will engage with them, we'll look at what they can offer us, and from an officer's perspective who's very passionate about school meals, if it can increase our uptake, that's the first and foremost. And the nutrition's no part of it, Chair, because nutrition's set by the nutritional guidelines. So they can't offer any enhanced nutrition as part of what they're offering. All they're offering is a gold certificate that says you meet a set of criteria, and them criteria are normally associated with local or Scottish provenance, and we've already ticked that box better than what it does through naturally D&G.
So just on 3.9, Caroline will forgive me for just when I'm looking at the figures, but I take it's rounding ups or downs, but it says we've got 51% and 43%, which is 94%, and then we've got 1% each for external customers and Meals on Wheels, and 3% for two retail outlets, and then that's 99%. I take it's just roundings, but
yes, I'm afraid I should have used a decimal place in those things. Unfortunately, when you go round numbers, you end up always kind of slightly missing the target.
The important point on this, though, is that if it's either 5 or 6%, that we're actually utilising by providing mainly an internal focused service, but we're also able to kind of get 5 or 6%, which is £200,000 from the two outlets and from Meals on Wheels and things like that. Is the two outlets? Where are the two outlets that we're talking about?
They're the cafe based in Cargan Towers. And the Dock Park Cafe. We used to run the Ice Bowl Cafe, but that was taken back by communities and run by the Ice Bowl staff themselves.
Thanks for that. Graham?
Just a small point, Chair. On page 9, Appendix 2, capital programme, we've got slippage of 1.197 million. I assume that will be caught up with by the end of the financial year, or is that a wrong assumption? And what's caused it?
Through you again, Chair. That's the comment about where we're now working with Property and Architectural Service because of where it shows slippage. They're then bringing other activities and other projects back in. So the simple answer is yes, there will be a programme of works that will be sufficient for enterprising service. They have a design, a programme that they report to the P&R, and if some of those projects are slipping, they will be reported there, and then consequently they will come to us here for delivery.
Members, I think we've had a good kind of analysis of the monitoring report. Apart from the recommendations, which we're asked to note 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3, Claire's made a number of notes based on comments that you've actually forwarded that might be incorporated into the future report. So I'll just ask you to summarise those.
Thank you, Chair. You've obviously made a lot of comments about the presentation of future reports and how it could be improved going forward, particularly how data is presented in tables. There's also been comments about more details about when slippage gets reported, and basically looking for more information coming back in future reports. There was a mention of possibly a future report that would perhaps go to EEI on how you would cope with the condition of an ageing fleet. And we'd also asked for more an operational thing rather than for the minute, details on the pool cars to be sent out, providing you the numbers, locations, average and total mileage.
Yeah, I think that covers that. That's excellent. Claire? Okay, on that basis, are we happy to note?
Sorry, can I just ask, are we incorporating those recommendations that Claire's just gone through into the recommendations of 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3?
As per normal, yes, that they will be incorporated into that. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Item 4 is the Enterprise and Services Commercial Development Plan, its service profiles and key performance indicators. As members will be aware, this report details the KPIs developed for the enterprise and service that will provide measures and accountability and will be reported to this subcommittee at future meetings based on the scrutiny and performance of enterprise DG successes. Members will recall that we agreed, I think back in May, at the subcommittee to support the refocused enterprise and DG commercial development plan and the commercial action plan and the enterprise and DG marketing strategy. So they have been agreed and they went to EEI. But what we are looking at is the KPIs and the additional information that was requested at the EEI. So it was also agreed that a report be brought back to the next meeting of the committee, which will include the KPIs, financial data and organisational structures and staff resources, which hopefully have been presented here today. The report author is in attendance, together with officers from Enterprise and Services, to answer any questions. Does the report author want to add anything before open it to members? Okay, open up to members.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start off with this. So, first of all, when I received the papers, I was slightly concerned that we had exactly the same report in front of us that came to EEI, and my understanding was that we would get an updated plan with the key information that has just been mentioned there by the Chair. Now, I understand that we have got appendices on there, although I don't see the financial data that was asked, and I'm looking back at EEI committee of what was recommended, and it was for information to go back to EEI. So I'm assuming that it's up to the committee here today to add into any recommendations on the report before us before it goes back to EEI, because the last thing that I think any of us want to be in is in the position where this report then goes back to EEI and then EEI then are not happy with that. So I just wanted to get clarity that we have the opportunity to put in further amendments here. There are various points that I am concerned with, but one of them is looking at the key performance indicators. Now, the plan has now got a list of KPIs in there, but there's no target set on them, and there's no detail within that, and there's no reference to the appendix.
Sorry,
Yep.
Are you saying that there's no detail on all the KPIs?
On the plan, there's no detail on the KPIs. In the plan, I have said that there is some detail on some of the appendices, but the appendices aren't referenced in the plan. So if somebody was to just simply look at the plan, there's actually not a lot of information in here, which is one of the criticisms that was said at EEI back in May. Looking at the table and in the appendix, which is Appendix 3, on page 43 and onwards, yes, there's lots of information on here that there are new indicators and the data will be available in January 19. However, I'm concerned that we're setting KPIs and the data will be available in 2019 when this plan is in effect from 2017. So 2 years after the plan, for the years that it's covering, we don't have the data. And I accept that there's no data there, but we don't even have any targets. How on earth can we set KPIs if we've no targets? I accept we maybe don't have all the data just now, but we're not even setting any targets. So from my looking at this, if you have no target, what is the meaningfulness of this report? What is it actually giving us? Because I am really struggling with what the purpose of this is if there's no target set and we won't have the data until January 2019.
Comment, pick that up.
So I think, Chair, for myself as author on that, I think it's been, the KPIs were set as part of our management team. The view was, and maybe it's incorrect, the view was that we would bring back to this committee the KPIs to agree them, based on the principle that we had pulled them together against the outcomes, principles and values that set within the agreed CDP that was agreed at EI in this committee previously. Happy to take the criticism with the view that if we should have been set, my view and the group's view, I believe, certainly through head of service, would be that we didn't want to start to pull together information and present it to members if they didn't want to agree the fundamental KPI set within the CDP. And I'm happy to take that criticism. The view if that's the wrong approach, but we felt that was the right approach. The view is that we know that we've got some data sitting that we can collect, and we would then set them in January. Strategically, that was once again discussed with us as a group, and we thought the right thing to do was then collect the last quarter of that data, and that would then set some benchmarks that would then allow us to then set forward under the rest of the new financial year moving forward. I think the 2017 to 2020 plan that was put in place was that once again we brought back the CDP as a refreshed document, because actually, if you look at the last plan that was agreed, there was no PI set against it at all. So I still stand by the fact that the CDP is a better document than it was before. We could have put some indicative numbers in against the key KPIs. How fruitful they would have been when we came to January, we start pulling the data together, I'm not quite sure. So, take on board the criticism of that. But my view, as I stand by, would be that members would go through the KPIs, agree if they wanted them, and fundamentally based on the title of them. And if they didn't want, we would then delete them and put any other KPIs that the committee thought that maybe would be relevant, and then set them benchmarks in January.
So just for clarity, Alan, so if we agree the KPIs and any additional KPIs today, and then that will go to EEI for them to agree the KPIs, how do we then incorporate the relevant KPIs within the CDP? Do we do it as an appendix to the CDP or yeah?
Chair, as you will look with other, as the parent committee, EEI, and the performance that is reported at, all the KPIs are a broad brush across the entirety of that service and delivering and reporting on the performance globally across that service. It's the same principles in this, picking up on Alan's comments, the strategic outcomes, the values, etc. They are all fundamentally linked across all the activities within the KPIs and a broad brush across the CDP. So yes, it would be, as we've got it in here, a series of performance indicators that portray and identify what has been agreed at this committee by the members as the key relevant KPIs that we would then be monitored against. So it's about having this committee signing up and aligning these KPIs as being appropriate to give an overall holistic review of how enterprises services delivering against the commercial development plan.
And so if we're financially monitoring the performance of enterprise and DG as a subcommittee, then we would also be monitoring your performance against the KPIs once they've been agreed here and then at EEI. Is that
correct, Chair? And these would obviously be in Pantana, and they would be there for scrutiny through that process as well.
Cttee, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, if I can come back. I mean, on that point, I believe that we as a committee should be putting in a recommendation that some of this data is populated before it goes to EE&I for approval. Because yes, I agree that we have the key performance indicators and we can agree those, but we have no way of measuring. There's no indication of how we're going to know if we ever meet those KPIs because the information's not there. Now, I understand that the role here is to approve those KPIs, but before they can be approved at EE&I, we do need to have that further information coming back. And I just wanted to come back on the point made that you believe that this commercial development plan was far better than the previous one. What's that based on? Because we've had no data coming back from the targets that were set by the last one as to whether we even met those targets. It's a better plan. How on earth, as members, can we scrutinise that when we've had no information back? Because in the previous plan, there were targets set in that plan and key performance indicators from that plan. And there's been nothing come back as far as I'm aware. Maybe it was before my time that there was key performance indicators and there was exception reports of where we didn't meet our targets for this and we exceeded our targets on that. I've never seen that report. So how we can then say this is a better plan than the last one when there's absolutely no point of reference. And I believe that it's our job here to scrutinise this properly. And we cannot possibly scrutinise it properly when the information's simply missing.
Can I just come in first of all? I'll let Anne and Ronnie pick up the second point. On the first point, I don't particularly agree with the fact that I think we can agree the KPIs here. We don't necessarily need to see, if some of the values need to be filled in, because I think it's the principle of the KPIs, and then that can go to EEI, and we can get that information. I don't want to delay this anymore, because you're talking January, you're not approving this to the end of the financial year. Hold on. So I think my idea is that, that we can agree the KPIs, and any additional ones, we can agree them here. Some of the values are in here, but that's not something new with regards to the council when we're agreeing some of the KPIs. Some of the information just cannot be available at that time. But I think if we agree the principle of the KPIs, then we can take it forward. Once we could agree this today. Hold on, Katie. Hold on. Let me finish. But I think we agree the KPIs today, and then it can go to EEI for ratification. I think, if my understanding is, you're saying that we can't agree that today, and right, well,
and that's not what I'm saying, Chair.
Could you clarify?
What I'm saying is, yes, we can agree the KPIs, but we could put in an additional recommendation that before they go back to EE&I, they then have that further detail added. I'm not proposing that they come back to this committee. I'm proposing that we agree them as per the paper, but that actually before it goes back to EE&I, that there's further clarity on those. That was my suggestion.
And that's what you said, because I didn't want it coming back to this subcommittee, but I believe that if we can agree in principle, even if some of the figures aren't here, I'm quite comfortable for them to go to EEI. I don't think we have to wait to present it to EEI until in the middle of next year. I think it can go with that, and then it's up to EEI whether or not they actually endorse that. But I don't think you need all the KPIs in. I don't think I've seen a report that has all the full KPIs by the end, by halfway through a year. So can you take the other point, the second point that was raised?
Chair, if I can, I agree fully with what Alan says about the previous report. The previous commercial development plan had one basically primary output, and that was a financial number. What this revised commercial development plan, which has been approved, shifted the focus, and has now, as part of this, these performance indicators that have been presented here, gives additional background information to the overall service that gives a transparency and clarity of activities and elements of business that go on within the service, to give a fuller picture of how that service is operating. So old had one, which was on a number. This gives us greater information, and the chair is correct. Others have gone forward with KPIs. You have to collate certain information. You're starting some from a position with you're collating that data now to fulfill the KPI. Others that will be self-populated very quickly, and that is the purpose of these KPIs. It's to allow a greater transparency for members of what is behind enterprise and service.
I would just add, if that's what the purposes are, why are we even setting targets? There's a table here that's not been filled out. That was my concern, that the table in front of us doesn't have the data, and even just the targets. And if that's not if KPIs aren't about setting targets, why have we got a column which has a target that's all sitting empty?
Back, Ronnie.
Again, through you, Chair, it's looking to get this committee's agreement that these, what we are proposing are the appropriate KPIs for the information that you will want for us to manage and collate and report to this committee as we go forward from this time.
Alan, do you want to come in? Sorry.
Yeah, Chair. I think there's some valid points for the members, and where you're coming from with regard to that. I think I'd like to just, if we could go back slightly. I think what we've got is we've got a committee that we've brought forward a new CDP, and I would like to think we agreed it based on the fact that it was refreshed and better than the one before. I think certainly there was major concerns for the management team around the fact that we only had one measurable element within the last one, and that was a financial one. I think from the criticisms that we've picked up at committees prior to before, we were deemed and charged with being more than just generating income. We were charged with looking at what our public purpose was in supporting the local economy. And I think when we look at through the KPIs that we've put, the titles of the KPIs that we've put forward, we've tried to do that. I think one of the points that's worth noting is that some of the KPIs, when we use the word key performance indicator, is, and I'll use an example, number of contractors. I think we are, as part of the CDP, we already say that we're looking at giving elected members to be involved in the heart of everything that we do. It's within the CDP. And I think as part of that, we're looking at setting how many local contractors have we got. And if that number, making it up at the moment, is 200, then, are we going to set a target against that? I think we'll set a target against that as we progress through. Key performance indicators grow as the business would start to develop, and some of the targets will move, and some of the targets will not be. There won't be any targets in some of them KPIs to start with. We'll be looking for guidance from this committee and potentially EI to give us guidance on that, because when we get to the one that's about local contractors, it may be we've got 200 and next year we'll be reporting that we've only got 150, and then we'll be reporting back to this committee and the reasons why. So I think we're trying to give ownership back to the committee, whether rightly or wrongly, Chair.
I think from Kate's point of view and others, I think we have the opportunity that once we agree the principle of the KPIs, we can then actually change, or, if we don't feel as though that target is the correct target to go for, etc. But I think it's about populating the data and trying to get some of the data. There is quite a lot of the KPIs that have got information on them, but I think we take it on the principle that if we agree these and the other ones, and take it to EI and have that debate there as well, and hopefully get the CDP agreed as well. I think it's quite unfortunate as well that we're just a year and a bit into a new council, so some council members won't remember the old CDP, although we did. I think one of the first meetings, I think we presented the CDP as it stood, the old one, and then we've done a refresh. So they are, from my point of view, I wasn't on the enterprise and sub before that, but I had a look at both, and there is a total difference from and vision and direction with the new one. So, but it's a little bit unfortunate. So it's maybe having a session sometime in the future where we go over the plan in detail and maybe just answer any questions. I think we've done a seminar as well, which provided information on the plan as well. David, do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm on page 33, and I think the building and maintenance services age profile notwithstanding, the facilities services age profile represents a typical age profile. And I think I was at a meeting not long ago where it was mentioned this particular type of age profile might be a disadvantage. However, I think given the reductions in spending and constrictions we'll be operating in the next few years, and my predilection for a reduction in the range of our activities, I would like to congratulate the Chair and his team for producing such an age profile which would seem to fit with our requirements going forward. Thank you.
Councillor Nicholl.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 4 points. The first one is on page 31, there's a vacancy as a regional quantity surveyor. Are we filling that, or is that a saving? It's the first question.
Do you want to pick that up?
The vacancy there for a regional quantity surveyor is being reviewed on the basis of the business going forward at the minute. And going forward, it would be anticipated that post will be filled.
Is on page 43, which is sickness, days off for sickness. We have a target of 9 and we've managed to achieve 12.68, which is, but that's quite a high percentage above the target. It's at least 33%, maybe a bit more. Could somebody give me some explanation for that?
Through you, Chair, absence management within our service, as always, remains a challenging process. All of my managers here are very proactive in managing the teams that are with them in relation to sickness. It is disappointing we're still above the numbers of days that we wish to report against. However, there is no simple fix to this. It's something that we're all working to try and eliminate as far as possible. There is a lot of issues related to some of the age profiling within our service. There are some long-term absences through to some very serious medical conditions. And yes, we have the problems of the ones that we have to monitor and manage very robustly on a day-to-day basis. So it is one of the, as we go forward, we would hope to see somewhat of a dramatic change within this process and what we report back. But I have to give reassurance to this committee that sickness absence management is one of the key activities, because if a person is not in working, it's not producing for this service, and we have to reduce this number. So it is something we don't take lightly. It is a challenge, and we are all working with that challenge to deliver and reduce those numbers.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ronnie. I've employed some of the ones you referred to in my previous life, and maybe didn't employ them for very long. Page 45. Percentage of staff who have completed an annual performance, 57%, which is quite low. Or have you a target for that? There's a status of target. There's no target. The target column's not filled in. I just wondered if there was a target of how many people we did annual performances on. And just when I'm at the point, I'll give you the last one. It's page 48, and it's to do with the amount of repairs. It says 99%, but it's 2017 was the last time it was updated.
Okay, do you want to pick those 2 points up?
In relation to PDRs, yes, what we would look for is to do as many as physically possible. I think obviously this year has been somewhat challenging with some of the changes with the people departing from the service. And I have to give compliment to teams. Some members within enterprising service do in excess of 100 PDRs, maybe more. And these teams pull this together as well. Normally you would see us sitting about in the high 80s, and last year we did take a dip. And again, as we come forward through this committee, you will see that figure going back up to a more appropriate position. But we've got a vast number of staff out there. We've got a lot of people who work part-time contracts, and there is a huge emphasis on seeing all these people, and that is what's delivered. And it's a credit to those that are doing the vast number of PDRs through this process. But yes, last year was a challenge just because of a lot of changes, a lot of people departing from our council. But again, we've refocused that, and we will be delivering that, and you will see a difference based on that for next year.
Look forward to that, and I know it's time consuming. It's very time consuming, but I look forward to it going back.
You can hold him to that. He's made a commitment there, Graham. And the last point.
Apologies, Councillor Nicholl, can you just refer to your...
Gordon's got to answer this one.
Through you, Chair, simply the data hasn't been run recently coming through to our financial year end. We haven't got that data in conjunction with property architectural services, and we can provide that going forward.
Is the 99% accurate?
Yes.
Well done. I hardly believe it, but well done.
Got that.
Thanks, Chair. Page 22, the list of KPIs. 1, 2. Fifth down, annual spend on local, small and medium enterprises. Now, presumably that means the relative as well as the absolute spend, because the absolute spend on its own does not actually mean a lot.
Alan or Stephen? I'm following the fingers pointing.
The spend through our local SMEs, particularly through building services, is the amount of money that we are physically giving to these contractors for the work they are carrying out. In terms of that being, whether it be local businesses or businesses out with the region or businesses out with even the country. That is brought forward on the basis that the amount of contractors that are now on our dynamic purchasing system. So effectively, the percentage there is running around about 80% of companies on the council framework are local. All of these companies are now able to tender for works going out, whether that be a works below a £5,000 value or whether that be major packages for pieces of work going forward. Basically, the monitoring there is to see how much of that is getting done locally. We have put an extensive engagement process in with the local contractors to push the number of local guys onto that list as high as we can, and that's been seen. We've now got 80% on that. But with the trend we are starting to see is the companies that are out with the region are not being competitive. So I would think that the percentage of the money we are spending locally will be much higher than that 80%. But we've yet to see that data.
So therefore, we as members can expect to see the percentage of spend as well as the absolute amount of spend.
That is actually, if you look into KPIs, there's actually a KPI there for a figure and for a percentage.
Thank you. Chair, just moving down, the percentage of successful tenders awarded. Now, I would have thought that if a tender is awarded, it is successful. So, I'm just a wee bit confused by the wording in that KPI.
Stephen?
The wording of that terminology is when the council is actually tendering for works not within the council. So, for example, we are tendering for works with the NHS, so that will be the percentage of those tenders that we are awarded, rather than the works that we are awarding to others.
Right. So this is for external tendering. Right. I was reading it the other way around as contractors tendering for work from the council. Thank you.
Clarify that in the plan. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me come back in again. Looking at the key performance indicators on page 24 and 26, there's reference to waste, but there's no reference to recycling. Now, my understanding is waste is very different to recycling, and I totally appreciate that when this plan was developed, we weren't in the current situation we are, where we're looking to bring all those services back in-house. And it's just to simply put a request that can we add in the word recycling next to the waste, so waste and recycling rather than just waste, just to highlight that we are looking at recycling as well.
Yep, I think that's a given. Rose?
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a real quick one. Looking at the age profile of some of the staffing charts, what succession planning is in place regarding ERVS, and could that be reflected in a KPI or somewhere in the report?
Alan? Ronnie?
Obviously, we have a workforce, we have a current existing profile of their age. If there are vacancies that come up, if somebody naturally leaves and allows us the ability to replace that post, we would hopefully see a change in the age profile that's coming into this, and we actively participate with our education colleagues and going to do some of the work fairs to try and encourage younger people to look at certain career paths and give opportunity when there are vacancies. It is very challenging to try and encourage certain people into certain activities, and you look at it, the building services side gives a very young profile, whereas on the opposite side, you've got within the facilities team, which tends to be predominantly women coming in with additional jobs at the end of, and they have a higher age profile, and likewise one that we always thought we would be able to encourage a younger workforce within to the roads and construction side, but again it's very difficult to encourage them into that side of it. So when there are vacancies, we advertise and we hope that we can draw people in of an appropriate age that gives us that succession going forward, and we're very mindful of that as part of the RBS process, looking at what is left for the success our council going forward. So it's not an easy one to fix, but you've got to encourage where we can and promote the services that we have and the knowledge of these services. And I think that's one of the elements in particular when you look at the success of our the profiling of people within our services through our Facebook page that tries to encourage and broaden the knowledge of the type of roles and activities out there that people may want to consider for future employment. So it's one we're working on, but again, it's not a simple fix to suddenly change the dynamic of the profile as it currently stands.
Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for that. I know it is very challenging, and I think it might be a good idea to work with SIPL regarding some of the developments at the new schools. That I've been very encouraged to see some of the practical stuff that's going on regarding children's development.
Chair, through you. We actively work with SIPL as a good example of that just now within the vehicle maintenance side. Gordon has facilitated a premise at Lockerbie within our workshops that allows a collaboration between the school, the college and ourselves, that we can bring young people in who can get experience within the workshops to allow them to then look at their SVQ and then potentially give them a career path coming into that industry. So we are doing things proactively to try and encourage and change the dynamic of the workforce.
Yeah, just for interest really, in a previous life, I mentored apprentices in the council in the building services when I was chair of the Federation of Small Businesses in Dumfries and Galloway. And I noticed that the building and maintenance service age profile is by far and away the best, and I would like to pat myself on the back and think that my mentoring... No, I mean, it's good to see that the age profile in that particular service is very good, because the other one is there's a lot of people near the end of their working life, and these apprentices, were we successful in holding on to these apprentices? Did they stay with the council by and large, or was there a big dropout? Because I found it actually very worthwhile. I enjoyed it, and I hope the apprentices found it worthwhile, although some of the things I told them I maybe didn't like.
Yeah, through you, Chair, yeah, I'm passionate about this because I started as an apprentice many moons ago. Our apprenticeship programme has been very successful, sometimes to our detriment, on the basis that we probably create and grow some of the best apprentices that are out there. Stephen and his team have had great success, both based around Scotland on the Apprenticeship Awards and at a national level, the Apprenticeship Awards. We've retained a lot of them. A lot of these young people have managed to find full-time employment within our council. And we have sadly lost a few of them because they have been headhunted, whether it be from our trainee QS that we brought in from school as a school leaver to pick up national recognition and awards and then suddenly be picked by a Glasgow firm, headhunted. Likewise, electricians, gas fitters and plumbers, all these people, we give them the best training. A lot of them stay, but a lot of them get picked off and go to further careers outside the council, and good on them for that as well. It gives them greater promotion, but we have to see it as both good and bad. But it's good that we are doing a real proactive approach within that.
Is that service, the mentoring service, still done or not? Is that fallen by the wayside?
Through you, Chair, yeah, the apprentices do still have a mentor, which is a member of staff who's embedded within EEI, and through that process, the apprentices have someone they can go to. It's also someone who completes a monthly report for these guys. That's then done in conjunction with their tradesman, also their supervisor. It then goes up to the area manager, and ultimately I sign that off at the end of it. So it's going right through the process, so the whole number of staff are seeing how these apprentices are progressing, and if there's any issues going forward, if there's any things we need to do to change their training profile, if there's any things we need to give them additionally in terms of training. So it's really well looked after. What I will say is the apprenticeship programme was set up with my predecessor, and he deserves a congratulations for that. I'm just picking up and running with what he set up.
Members of no other members' comments. Can I just kind of sum up with regards to where we are and where we're going now? So obviously we have the commercial development plan, which we'd already ratified, but we wanted to actually see the KPIs. Now the KPIs in the appendix are in detail, but they're also referenced within the commercial development plan. And this will now go to EEI for them to actually agree the KPIs if we agree these today. I think, and taking on board Katie's point and some of the others, I think for us going forward, I think we do need to kind of, as this is a dynamic kind of CDP, I think we have to ensure that we are hitting our targets, etc. So what I was going to suggest is that once the KPIs are agreed, I mean, in the document, you know, the figures and the targets can't go into that because that's a document that's front facing and it's out facing from the council as well. It's in the public domain. But I think what we need to do as a committee at the end of each year is actually go through the KPIs, see how we're performing. And there is also the chance to actually look at those and change those if we feel, so that we at least feel as though that we can see where the plan is developing, and we can change that if we feel as though we're underachieving or overachieving in certain areas. Is the committee comfortable with that? Yeah.
Can I ask, would we put in the recommendation that we would be reviewing then the KPIs on an annual basis?
Yeah.
Is that what you're suggesting for the recommendations?
Okay. Based on the plan, Katie, so really, and I think if we have a specific report at the end of the year, so that we can actually identify any problem areas and get the officers' input into that, and then we can shape that going forward, so that each year we have the opportunity to refresh the plan and tweak it to actually make sure it's doing what it's meant to do. Okay, so if I go to the recommendations, but also just to confirm, Claire, if you've captured what I've asked for there. So the recommendations are 2.1, agree the key performance indicators as detailed in Appendix 3, and note service profiles for enterprise and services at Appendix 2, and also take on board.
Can I just be clear, when you're agreeing them, you're obviously agreeing them to recommend to EEI for them to formally ratify.
Yeah.
And you're also agreeing that you want to have annual performance report, or to allow for your scrutiny of your KPIs, so you can undertake your scrutiny role.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously based on the performance of the plan.
Can we build in the fact that we would like to have recycling mentioned as well as waste, just to put that into the KPIs as well?
I think I noticed the officers actually nodded on that, so I think that'll be taken on board. So there will be some tweaking of the CDP as well when it goes to EEI. Okay. Right, with those recommendations, we're on to item 5. Any other business? I've got no other business, so thank you very much for attending.